the 2023 Baltimore Ravens. Is this going to be a team of redemption? Last year, faced with so many different injuries, adversity that they had to really fight throughout the entire course of the 2022 regular season. Lamar Jackson is back with the vengeance. We have J.K. Dobbins is making his return. This is a big pivot point for the Baltimore Ravens franchise. With the addition of Odell Beckham Jr. and other guys, this team could make a run next season. In today's video, we are going to be going over the 2023 Baltimore Ravens season and kind of an overall preview of what this team can be. Make sure to subscribe for more NFL content. So jumping into it here, first we have to take a little bit of a flashback to last season. The 2022 NFL season for the Baltimore Ravens, they faced a lot of challenges. First and foremost, let's just review how the playoffs ended for them. Obviously, a wild card loss to the Cincinnati Bengals, a narrow one-touchdown margin of victory for the Bengals. However, the Ravens were very competitive in that game, and they proved, even with Tyler Huntley at quarterback, that they could potentially win a playoff game. They were close, but nevertheless, they ended the season shortly, and now it was kind of back to the drawing board for the Ravens franchise. A lot of which they had to endure was the fact that Lamar Jackson missed 5 3/4 games, J.K. Dobbins missed about 9 games, and also Gus Edwards had missed 8 total games. Therefore, a lot of injuries piled up throughout the course of the season. Those are just a couple that you can name. However, they were very significant injuries for the offense. However, there was a silver lining, in my opinion. The rushing game was second in the NFL in terms of totality, and I think this is a big positive considering they were missing their top backs. They still found a way on the ground to get it done. With Lamar Jackson also missing, some games, this was really, really exciting for them, the fact that they were able to run the football. However, the receiving core was not able to produce as well as they had hoped, ranking towards the NFL bottom. Now, if you look at the actual scoring offense, they were 20th in the NFL in scoring offense. Defensively, they were 3rd overall in the NFL in scoring defense. This is a huge testament to this coaching staff, this organization, for being able to put together a very competitive team despite some of these key injuries. The offensive line had played well, which is a major reason why they were obviously able to run the football effectively. Roquan on the defensive side of the ball was an absolute menace. It was totally worth, acquiring him. This was a big deal for the Ravens defense. He is a stud. He is the overall player that can move a needle for a defense. At the linebacking position, he's one of the top at that spot. So overall, Baltimore made a wise decision. Roquan Smith is one of those players that can absolutely help a defense and, truly traject them to be towards the top of an overall ranking of defenses. So a lot of credit to the front office making the move. Roquan is the real deal for this team. So that's just kind of a general flashback to what they were this past season. A season of hope. A lot of people had some high expectations, for the team, but in reality here, they've landed just short of their overarching goal of, obviously making a deep playoff run. But they made a couple of different additions that should help that via the draft as well as free agency. Now taking a look at some of the key free agent additions for the Baltimore Ravens. I look at it from the standpoint of Odell Beckham Jr. is the big highlight player during the offseason. Rightfully so. I think he's going to have an incredibly productive season for the Baltimore Ravens. Should have 1,000 yards, could have near 10 touchdowns. This guy is the real deal heading into the year. However, some of the other signings make a lot of sense to me. Good value free agents, Rock Ya-Sin, Trayvon Mullen, 2 corners, that have some NFL experience. I think when you look at the actual size of these corners and what they can do on the field, it is very conducive for the scheme for the Baltimore Ravens defense. They lean on their corners a lot to make plays, and I think that is exactly what these guys can bring heading into the 2023 season. Nelson Agholor, another wide receiver that they add this offseason. I think he's going to have an impact. You're kind of throwing him in the mix with rookie Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham Jr., Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay. There's a lot of really good receivers now in this room, and Nelson Agholor really helps in terms of the overall depth of this team. So I think from what they were able to do from a value standpoint in free agency, they did super well. They didn't lose it a lot during the offseason, and they were able to translate it here and add some nice solid pieces that are going to help this team moving forward. Now we take a look at the key draft picks. Now, there were a couple of them that are going to be big needle movers in my opinion. Zay Flowers from Boston College, in my humble opinion, is the best wide receiver in the entire draft. A lot of people pass up on him because of his size, but he is a very clean route runner. He's got, great yards after the catch ability. I think this is one of those players that can completely move a needle for an offense. He is so dynamic with the ball in his hands. He can create a lot of mismatches, amongst the guys he will be going up against. And I think that Zay Flowers can definitely take this team to another level with his explosiveness. This is something that they've desperately needed at the receiver position, and he adds that kind of dynamism to the passing game. So Zay Flowers is a guy that we have to key in on as potentially the biggest add of the entire offseason. Now, I know that we just reviewed those key free agents that they had brought in. However, I think Zay Flowers could bring even more dynamism than people realize. He's got a slim frame. However, this guy can make some big plays happen with the football in his hands. Trent Simpson is another one here in the third round that they got from Clemson. A lot of people were projecting him to potentially be anywhere from a mid to a late first rounder. Now, I think some people will say, no, that's not the case. But I mean, if you look through the entirety of the year, a lot of people had him for sure at the very end of the first round. So getting him in the third round was a huge get for this team. He's an athletic linebacker, sideline to sideline, has really good instincts, and could be a major contributor for this team moving forward. I think Trent Simpson is one of those picks that you look at as a total A+ level selection in terms of the actual value and where they got him in the draft, as well as a potential scheme fit for the team. In the fourth round, Tavius Robinson was a big get. Second in the nation in terms of forced fumbles, was one of the hidden gems, of the draft. I think that this makes a lot of sense for them. He's going to be a nice rotational pass rusher for this team. I think Tavius Robinson is going to be one of those players down the line that you say, how the heck did he land in the fourth round? I think this makes a lot of sense for this team to be able to add some depth in the trenches, which they were able to do. In the fifth round, we had Kaya Blue Kelly, and I think when you look at what he can become at the NFL level, he has the frame. This guy can make some big plays. I think that you look at what they were able to do from rounds 3 through 5, it is extravagant. It is very, very big for them moving forward. And I think that we have to consider this a terrific draft by Eric DeCosta, a nice job by the scouting department, personnel. This is a terrific draft for them, and I think they absolutely hit it out of the park. Now taking a look at the actual offensive outlook that they have, this depth chart is very exciting to look at in totality. You have Odell Beckham Jr., Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers as the receiving core. Following it up, you have Devin Duvernay, Nelson Aguilar, James Prochet. This is a really good group, really, really good group. There's some other guys for some depth pieces, Tylan Wallace, Laquan Treadwell, Mike Thomas. To me, this is so much better than where they sat just a year ago. I'd like some of the guys that they had, but in totality here, you add some two big-time playmakers. Odell Beckham Jr. can have a very productive year, and Zay Flowers is going to be monstrous for the Ravens. Looking at the offensive line, just some minor changes here. No more Ben Powers, but overall, you keep a lot of the same core. Morgan Moses, Kevin Zeitler, Ronnie Stanley, Tyler Linderbaum. This is a terrific offensive line. Andrew Voorhees is a nice depth guard, in my opinion, that they were able to bring in. I think this offensive line is top tier for the most part. They did a nice job, assembling this offensive line, and they're going to be able to really run the football effectively moving forward. But then you look at, some of the skill positions here, like J.K. Dobbins, you have Lamar Jackson, and then another guy that you have to be super excited about. Obviously there's Mark Andrews, but I think Isaiah Likely is going to take another step forward heading into this season. A nice 2 tight end tandem there with Likely and Mark Andrews. Losing a guy like Josh Oliver in free agency was a little bit tough for them. Obviously, he landed with a big contract with the Minnesota Vikings, averaging about 7 or 8 annually. But I think that this offense is still in a better position than they were last season. There's a lot of reason for optimism. I think they're going to take another tier jump in terms of their offensive production, their points per game. That should see an incremental increase from 20th in the NFL to, all the way up to potentially, 10th. This offense is good, and they're going to make some big strides heading into next season. So Baltimore is in a really good spot offensively. Defensively, I think you look across the board and you have to be excited about what you see. They continue to bring in some guys that are going to help them out long term. I love their secondary. I really do. Now you're going to have a little bit of a change here. You have Brock Yassin as your number 2 corner. But I mean, you look at Marlon Humphrey's going to be an absolute stud this season. You have Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams, a terrific secondary. I look at the linebacking position. Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith, terrific linebacking duo. And their defensive line is one that is actually pretty exciting. You have Michael Pierce, Broderick Washington, Justin Madubuike, and Odafe Owe. To me, this is a very, very solid defensive unit, and that's a lot of the reason why they were so good last year, and I think that carries into next season. There's not a lot of things that would tell me, hey, there's going to be a huge regression. I think just with their overall depth, they have a lot of guys across the board. Trent Simpson, Tavius Robinson that were added during the draft. 2 guys that are going to be, productive, I still feel, in their rookie seasons. They're going to have some impacts as rookies. To me, this is a really good defensive unit in totality. Should be another top 5 scoring defense heading into next season. But across the board, a lot of guys that can make some impact plays. To me, that defensive unit is good. And then finally, kind of getting into the record prediction here. I look across the board, I see a lot of wins. Having a progression from 10 to 11 wins is, not super significant in terms of the actual number, but I think their win quality is going to be even better too. Houston's a very winnable game. Indianapolis, the divisional games are what are really tough to peg for this team, with having, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. They have a lot of quality opponents in division. So it's going to be a matter if they can get some wins on the road. But after I looked at it, analyzed it, I do believe that this team can win 11 games next year, and they're going to make the postseason. Lamar Jackson is a terrific quarterback when it comes to regular season wins. They should have, to me, at least 11 wins going into the postseason next year. This is a good team. This is a really, really good team, an underrated team that people aren't talking about heading into the season. I think they added a couple of nice pieces that aren't being talked about a ton, but the fact that they were able to draft so well, they didn't have to go super crazy in free agency, but adding a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. does help moving forward. Zay Flowers is going to be good. This receiving core is, in my opinion, going to be improved. Rashad Bateman should take another step forward this season. I think this is a good team. It's a very, very good team. A lot of winnable games on the schedule. After you look at it against divisional opponents, they should stack up pretty well. When they get to face the Rams, Seattle is another winnable game at home. Arizona is a winnable game. Detroit, even though Detroit is improved. Tennessee, all of which should be some winnable games on the schedule. And I ended up coming out with an 11-6 record. I think they very well could make a nice postseason run. If you are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Don't miss out on any more NFL content right here at Utility Sports Plus. I appreciate you stopping by. We'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.